Hey guys, my name's Chris. I was just gonna share a couple things about judging others, what the scripture says, and these are just some thoughts from the passage in Matthew 7. So, uh, one thing that is very common is when people talk about judging others, they talk about judging others, they refer to, Matthew chapter 7. Okay, so there's actually another part of this passage, and it's about. I'm just going to read the whole passage and then I'm going to explain my thoughts on this passage. So it says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time you have a plank in your own eye?" And then it goes on to say, when all, or I'm sorry, and then it goes on to say, "How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." Now here's where I'm going with this. It says, "Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." Okay, so here's what I'm gonna share. Is like if somebody is judging somebody else, right? They've made an observation, right? They say, okay, this is within or not within the parameter, right? They say like, here's the rule, or here's the right way, and that person is saying they are either not in the right way or they are in the right way, right? They are, doing what is right, or they are not doing what is right. Okay. So what this passage is saying, in my opinion, is we are not the judge. Jesus is the judge. Okay. God's going to judge the final judgment. Like we don't have, we're not perfect. Christ was perfect. So the do not judge part is saying, it's obviously, in order to judge, right? In order to judge something, you have to make an observation, right? So you have analyzed the situation and you make a judgment, right? So um, discernment would tell you, this is a better way than that, right? As far as like your walk with Christ. So now here's where I'm going with this whole thing is like the second part of this where it says, "Do not give dogs what is sacred, do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." So number one, like, you don't give dogs what is sacred, right? So number two, why would you throw a pearl to a pig? I mean, it's just like does not make sense, right? So this is what I believe is that like some people are, like you may make an observation and you may be giving them a pearl of wisdom, right? Or that person may not receive your wisdom, right? Like, you know, you say, "Hey, this is a better way," or like you may be making a judgment or an observation, but not like you're judging in the highest place like Christ will judge, okay? Because we're sinners, right? So if I say, "Hey, you've got, you did X, Y, and Z," well, I got three fingers pointing back at me, right? I got to look at myself and say, am I perfect? Maybe I'm not doing what that other person's doing in that particular moment, but I'm not perfect, So um, that's something to think about, and it's humbling, because this passage also tells us that we may see and know, but we're also a sinner. So um, Jesus died for our sin that we might have forgiveness of that sin. But really, it's the second part here where it talks about, do not give dogs what is sacred and throw your pearls to pigs. So you may have a nugget of wisdom, as you share with somebody, and they just may not see it. And so those are just some thoughts, because that part of the passage does not, it's just almost like doesn't belong there, right? It's like judging others, we have a measuring rod, and then are we measuring up to the standard, right? So Christ is the standard. Like, none of us can measure up to Christ, because we're born into sin through Adam, and that's why Jesus died on the cross for our sin, for the forgiveness of our sin by faith. We're saved through God's grace, not through our works. And we need to be mindful of that, as we go about our daily walk with God. And then that also keeps us humble, because if we become like really self-righteous, we have to, look inside ourselves and say, well, hey, I really am a sinner. We all sin, because we're all born into sin. So, those are just some thoughts on judging others. And, it's pretty obvious. It's like, looking in the mirror, like saying, well, hey, I'm not righteous. Someday I may have good days. I may have many good days, but I'm not perfect, and that's why God sent his son Jesus to die for us. So, I just thought I would share that little portion of the scripture, because you may have a nugget of wisdom, and that person that you're talking to may not receive it. Or maybe you could even divide this up into two separate sections, because you have some pearls, and you give them to somebody, and they don't receive what you're giving them. I've had that happen. Like, I've done street evangelism where we just talk to random people about Christ, and they're just not receiving it. They're not receiving what you're sharing with them from the Bible. And so the whole point of that is if I keep talking to that person, at a certain point, if they're not receiving it, it's like, am I throwing all my pearls to the pig? Like, it doesn't make sense, like, because they're not receiving it, But then again, you never know. Maybe further in the conversation, something happens, and you get through to them. So those are just some thoughts about, sharing the gospel, sharing your pearls with people, and judging others. So, anyways, that's all I got, guys. I just thought I'd make a quick video on that, because this topic of judging others has come up with somebody I know recently, and I've been thinking a lot about it. So I just thought I'd make a quick video, share my thoughts. You guys can comment down below on what your thoughts are on. I'd be interested to hear about do not give dogs what is sacred, and do not throw your pearls to pigs. Like, if you could explain, what you think that means and why that's in the scripture right there. I would be interested to hear, what you believe, because it's, the judging others part, it's pretty simple, right, to understand. But then all of a sudden there's this little passage in here, and we have to say, like, well, why is that in there? And then, like, why is that in there? Not just in the Bible, but why is it in there? It kind of reminds me of Proverbs, how Proverbs it's not like all about, certain topic in a certain area. Sometimes it's just like random proverb. And I actually do like Proverbs. I've heard some people say they have a hard time reading it, I guess because they think it's supposed to be, read like a novel or read like a book, like the Gospels, but I believe it's just a collection of sayings, and that's how they put them together. And I love them because they're easy to remember, and they're one or two lines. So anyways, guys, that's all I got for now. God bless you. I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about that passage. Bye.